So I study in SOAS, University of London, School of Oriental and African Studies, and basically before I was studying in Westminster, and back then there was the liberation of Aleppo. The anti-Syria activism in SOAS was massive. They literally had the campaign where they all signed a petition to condemn the Syrian and the Russian government and their allies in the Iranian government that would give legitimacy to the terrorists in Aleppo. So we worked against that. We tried to tell people, and the Syrian society in SOAS sadly was very anti the government and the Syrian army. They were sympathizing with the terrorists, sympathizing with the radicals. After the liberation, things started going down. And since I joined the university, I was actually talking to the people, and one of them, because SOAS has a lot of, not just SOAS, universities of London, you feel like they're pressured, they follow a trend, basically. So if it's a trend to be anti-Assad, anti-Syria, they just go with it.
Right.
But when another ideology comes in, I'm open about my ideas, I'm open about being pro-Syria. People start coming to me silently and secretly, and they will tell me, we're with you, like, what you're doing is fine, but we can't say anything. And they stopped going with the activism against Syria. That would start going decreasingly, and now the Syrian society in SOAS and a lot of anti-Syria societies in the university used to carry the revolution flag. Now they actually don't use a flag at all. They just put Syria and under societies for people to join. They don't use any flag.
Interesting.
Because now after the liberation of Aleppo, people are more aware about this flag and who's affiliated with that flag. Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these radicals.
Speaking of flags, you showed me a photo of yourself holding the actual Syrian flag.
I was actually, this is a good story. There's something actually. There was a protest to stop bombing Syria campaign. So a lot of people were holding the so-called revolution flag. I was the only one holding the Syrian flag, the actual Syrian flag, and a lot of people, I know them by name, from Syrians, but they're very anti-Assad. They threatened to behead me.
Oh my
And
God.
one of them actually attacked me and hit me with the pole. So I told the police, and one of the police actually told me it's freedom of speech. I told him he actually attacked me. He said there's no proof. But the only one thing the police did, they surrounded me because there's a lot of people going against me. They had to protect me against the crowds.
Yeah.
And when I was holding the picture of President Assad, people were screaming shame on you, and following them. But because I was standing and remaining, I didn't go down, some people actually started coming to me and told me, we're with you. What you're doing was right. British people, Arab people, Algerians, because they saw there's someone speaking up, so they feel like, yeah, they should speak up and not follow the trend anymore.
Why do you suppose this is the way it is? Why is there such anti-Syria, anti-Assad sentiments?
For me, actually, especially when it comes to the Muslim community in the UK, the liberal community in the UK, it's more of a trend than a cause. They don't care what's happening in Syria. They care about what the media follows. They care about what the media gives attention to.
Yep.
And sadly, they've been brainwashed.
You know, I can speak about the Syria Solidarity UK, so-called.
They are the ones who actually, one of them, he actually threatened me
Yeah.
in front of everyone.
Yeah, they're thugs. They're absolute
Yeah.
thugs. They and some of the so-called left, like Owen Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember the year. I want to say 2014, maybe. 2013, maybe 2014. Mother Agnes Mariam, the Lebanese Palestinian nun who's lived in Syria for I believe it's a couple of decades, was due to speak at an anti-war conference, which included a variety of views. And they actually were so aggressive against her participating in it that she stepped down and didn't participate. So this is the so-called anti-war left.
Especially, with the Palestinian solidarity campaigns in the universities, someone, or these anti-Syria campaigns, they're trying to drag them to give legitimacy to their cause. Because they know a lot of people stand with Palestine, so if they see the name of the Palestinian societies condemning the actions of the Syrian government, they'll just start sympathizing with the Syrian cause, as they call it, more. But now, thank God, after the liberation of Aleppo, and I actually spoke to a lot of Palestinian societies in the UK to stop getting involved in the conflict. Don't be pro, don't be anti, just stay focused on Palestine for now, and then you'll see what happens, because now you're making a lot of enemies. And soon the truth will come out, and all your actions you did against Syria will not be forgotten.
Yeah.
We will not forget anyone who stood against Syria.
So when I came to Syria this time, I took a series of flights. The cheapest option was Toronto, Montreal, Amman, Beirut. And on the flight from Montreal to Amman, I went to ask a flight attendant for some coffee, and the guy noticed my Syria bracelet and my Syria tattoo, and he asked why I love Syria. And I explained my reasons. And then he asked if I'd been to Turkey, and I basically just said, I will never go to Turkey until Erdogan's gone and the ideology there changes. And he went on to defend Erdogan and say he's a good man, and I said he's a terrorist and that he sent terrorists to Syria, and he said, no, it's all a big lie. But anyway, so you were saying...
Yeah, so I want to say some people would think that your ideas are close-minded or you're being radical in their opinion, but it's not true. We need to let people know that this is not an opinion. This is a support against the biggest war crime of our century against the Syrian people by these terrorists. It's not an opinion to be anti-Syria. This is actually given legitimacy or indirect support, if you call it, to the global terrorism in Syria.
Yeah.
So we need to let people know that this is not an opinion. This is not a point of view when you're standing against Syria.
Yeah.
This is a massive support to terrorism, and all the blood of the Syrians will be actually held. You'll be held to account because you're giving the legitimacy to the people massacring the Syrian people. So I don't understand why would. I mean, we can have opinions on different colors. We can have opinions on different foreign policies, but you cannot have an opinion in Syria. You're either with the terrorists or you're not with the terrorists. Some people would say, okay, we're against the government. It doesn't mean that we support terrorists. That's like an Assadist claim. Well, to be honest, today there is, whether you like it or not, terrorism exists in Syria. All the rebel fractions are controlled by globally known terrorist organizations like Al Qaeda and ISIS. If you're standing against the government, you're supporting the terrorists,
yeah,
directly or indirectly. At the end of the day, Syria has won, and I don't know, whoever wins writes history. And the history that we saw, the history that actually happened is going to be written in Syria, and we don't care about the opinions of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and with all the smears that we all get when you stand up for Syria, and when you talk about entities like the White Helmets and you get smeared, in the end it doesn't matter, because whenever I get a Syrian person telling me what they've been saying and what I say is the same thing, and they've been trying to say it, but people won't listen to them, that's what means something to me. Knowing that I'm human and I make mistakes, but the information I'm putting out is exactly what I've heard and seen in Syria.
Exactly. And the difference between our activism and the other side's activism, that we always have different groups, different people speaking different stories. They have the same recycled propaganda. Civilians dying, starvation, the same recycled propaganda that not just happened in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, and a lot of countries that have been destroyed by the same people that today are destroying Syria. Those rebel democratic fractions are surrounded by a common enemy today in Idlib, and they are literally massacring each other. Imagine the same people control all of Syria. Do you think there will be democracy and peace? They're surrounded by the same enemies, and they're literally killing each other today.
Yeah. Whereas here in Syria, people can choose whether or not they want to go to a bar, go to a church, go to a mosque, how they want to pray, whether or not they want to have a faith.
Minorities, they don't pay jizya, they don't pay money to stay in their land.
Absolutely. And they are all represented in the Syrian Arab Army.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is also the main thing we need to focus on, that the rebels are representative of one radical group, the same ideology, the same hatred, while the Syrian army represents all ethnicities, all religions, all sects of the Syrian people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hadi, Nasrallah.